Attention all holiday patriots. The woke, radical left doesn't want you to know this. And frankly, I shouldn't be telling you it's very bad business. But you can get 25% off all Deprogram merch right now at deprogramshop.com. Help me put the Christ back in Christmas by buying a hoodie or maybe a dope hat for your grandma. I know she loves the Deprogram. All proceeds go directly to building a small cage for Meatball Ron, which is frankly more than he deserves.
Come on, man. Enough with the cage thing.
Eat my ass, Joe. You know he deserves the cage.
I think he belongs in a cage. I think we all belong in a cage. We're a fallen species, a blight, little more than rats wallowing in our own self-importance.
Oh, Jesus, not you too. How the hell did you guys get in the Oval Office?
Shut up, Joe. I've got merch to plug. Use the code HOLIDAYPATRIOTS at checkout. That's one word, Holiday Patriots, and get 25% off your order or 30% if you're a patron. That's a great deal, folks. A lot of people are telling me it's the best deal they've ever seen, and I believe them.
It's a great deal.
Will you two get off my desk for Christ's sake?
It's not your desk, Joe. I scratched my name on it. Jordan, get your hog out. Let's take a selfie with the Deprogram merch.
Don't do that. Don't take your bird out.
It's too late. It's out. Look at it, Joe.
I'm not going to look at it.
Look at his penis, Joe.
This is so fucked up, guys.
Jordan, let me hold it.
Nice little handful, isn't it?
Very nice. Folks, remember to go get your Christmas merch discount by going to deprogramshop.com and using the code HOLIDAYPATRIOTS at checkout. Act fast. This amazing deal is only available through January 6th. Merry Christmas to all, even the haters and losers.
I'm going to kill myself.
Boys, I feel so blessed this morning. I was stuck with the baby for, I love Evie very much, but she bonked her little lip on the edge of the bed, and she was crying, and she was grumpy all morning, and so that made me late to the office to record this, and I was so hungry, but I was scrounging around, and I found one blessed hidden box of ramen in the back of the cupboard, and I'm currently slurping happily and getting ramen sauce all over my nice white shirt. How are your mornings? You thought I was going to say skin.
No. I thought you were going to say you had one of your dogs around. You're like, I was so hungry. He was like, hey, you know what? It's 100 grams of protein. I'm going to be
just munching on dog food.
So, no, my day is all right. I have a mixed bag. By the way, I'm sorry if I sound like I just ate something. I did just recently eat something. I had some fruit roll-ups, and now I'm having some hazelnut chocolate. What's it called? Remember I told you about the super low quality, God knows what, with arsenic and sulfur in it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm still buying those. And by the way, you never know what you're going to get with these, because sometimes you open it and the bar is either like upside down or downside up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, right side up.
So the orientation of it, yeah, exactly right. And sometimes it's not even fucking whole hazelnuts. But it generally slaps. So I've been having some green tea. So excuse me, but I have a mixed bag of random memories that came to my mind, plus current events that I can tell you about. I can tell you about one of the dearest things to my heart. This one I call accidental 9/11.
I'm joking on noodles.
It's only your second favorite after real 9/11.
Exactly right. So basically,
like, dear listeners, we lost I think 700 videos of a YouTube channel because we say shit like this, and I give them shit, don't say shit like this, and I just said shit like this. Hey, YouTube person looking at this, fucking joke. Okay, thank you very much.
Dear God, yeah.
I think it's two of them got taken up for hate speech. Let's go.
Yeah, hate speech. Like us hate speech. I understand if it's just my channel hate speech. Okay, I'm from the Balkans. It's kind of a thing.
Okay.
But these two guys, no fucking way.
Yeah, we don't hate anybody. Asterisk.
Aside from the French. But anyways.
Don't get Hakeem started on the Kurds, man.
No, stuff. Anyways, so when I was a young lad, I got very interested in programming for a little while. And I got interested in the concept of, maybe I want to be a video game developer one day, because I used to play a lot of video games. I think most young kids have this idea. I got pretty decent, I would say, at programming. And I decided I wanted to make a little, a flying game, playing game. So I coded this thing, I modeled some very basic planes, and I started, running the game, trying to see if, how the flying mechanics work and whatnot. And it was working out pretty well. And I was like, hey, you know what? I think I need to put some obstacles on the plane, in the field.
Oh God.
so I can fly around them, so I can see like how good the plane maneuvers. And I was doing this completely seriously. One day I take my computer to school and I sit with a classmate of mine. I'm like, hey, I want to show you what I've been up to. A close friend of mine at the time. And he's like, okay, yeah, sure, let's take a look. And then I was like, okay, just hit start, and then it's going to start you. And you hit start, and you're a plane flying in the middle of the air, and there's 2 towers in front of you. And if you hit anything, the ground or the towers or something, there's an explosion effect, and like you lose, basically. and the first thing that he did was, he was just like checking it out, and then the plane crashes into the building. And then he looked at me and was like, are you making like a 9/11? What are you doing? Oh my god!
Poor sweet Hakeem.
I also ripped some fucking like battle music from some Japanese game. I don't remember what it was now.
I love that.
But yeah, like some high energy like electric guitar riffs, basically.
Yeah. Mario Kart-esque music.
That's what's playing in the background as you're crashing into the fucking.
It's an Arab thing. No matter how hard they try, everything they do is just 9/11. You know?
Exactly right.
Oh my god! Again, YouTube reviewer, please, God. Now he's always in my head. It's no longer liberals in the walls. Now it's the YouTube reviewer guy. Like, Jesus Christ.
Let's have him on the pod. Let's have him.
Hey, honestly, reach out.
Yeah.
He's a reviewer guy.
Can we play that on stream? Do you still have that file?
I think I may have it somewhere. Yes,
Oh,
I
fine.
ironically
yes,
may still
please.
have it somewhere.
Find it.
So I'll find it. And
Like so many of our supporters and listeners are fucking programmers. If you gave it to them, I think it would take them 10 hours to turn into a proper 9/11.
the official deprogram game.
Yeah.
Oh my god, go for the high score.
Oh, Jesus.
Detonate the explosives at the base of the synagogue.
It's difficult to beat the current high score.
God.
I mean.
No, that was one. Another one was, for some reason I was thinking about you, JT, and you unlocked a memory in me.
Yes.
Which I don't know how it's possibly related. So you go up, Nick, you can be our psychoanalyst for the day, so you can tell me what this means. I was thinking of our beautiful baby boy, JT, and a memory of my mother returning from basically the groceries or something came to mind, and she's trying to park her car, her old piece of shit beater car. She's trying to park it, and there's one spot that she liked, but some guy had parked there, and she didn't like when people would take her spot, even though it wasn't her spot. It was a public parking spot, but it was her quote-unquote spot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And she uttered a curse that's very common, particularly in Iraq, but in the Arab world in general, but specifically in Iraq, which is طبق 16,000 مرض, which specifically means may 16,000 diseases enter you. For somebody who took her parking spot. And I always thought about, I was like, why 16,000? What is the specific number of diseases and disorders? But yeah, and the secondary question is, why did JT bring up this memory? I don't know.
What the fuck?
But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, check it out. Here you go. I got this for you. White man, road rage, groceries. That is the extent of the white man's experience. So I understand the connection here. I also understand that taking someone's spot is illegal and should be a capital offense.
It's akin to war crimes. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think it goes much deeper than that. So, Hakeem, you have a particular aspect of your internet personality that you believe belongs specifically to you. But nobody, you have never defined it as specifically yours. And JT, you told me to psychoanalyze you. And JT, intentionally or unintentionally, most likely unintentionally, just like the person who parked on your mother's spot, sometimes takes up that personality real estate, which you believe is truly yours. And as such, irritates you to an extent of cursing him with 16,000 diseases. This most likely is him stealing pretty much right under your nose these nuts joke, which you have proudly began. This is probably him
the first.
Yeah, canonically the first thing. I don't know where I'm taking this, but I want
to understand, how does this mesh with my overwhelming sexual desire for JT? This is what I want to know.
Yeah.
Well, you want to park your car in his spot, right?
Yeah. There we go. Let's go.
Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome back to episode 109. We are back with the second or third installment of Every President is a War Criminal. I can't remember if we've done 2 of these or 3. I think we've done 2 before this one. I believe this is episode 3. I think.
We did 1.
I don't. You sound off in the comments. Let your very professional podcast boys know whether this is episode 2 or 3 of All Presidents Are War Criminals. But if you haven't heard this one before, this recurring format is we take 3 lovely world leaders, usually U.S. presidents because they're low-hanging fruit, let's be honest, and we discuss how evil they were. And today we have 3 lovely picks for you, I think. We've got everyone's favorite first man, and we've got everyone's favorite dude who bought human beings, and then we've got...
the greatest fail son.
The greatest fail son, yeah. Let's without further ado, let's jump right in. I'm going to start us off with one Andrew Jackson.
Woo! Oh shit! No, he was bad. Fuck, sorry.
Yeah, wrong podcast.
Shit.
Well, friends, it was only a matter of time until we got to perhaps the worst president in U.S. history, Andrew Jackson. As you all know, Jackson rose to prominence after he was randomly selected to be featured on the $20 bill. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We are going to take a look at his obscure past, back in the days when he was just a lowly president. So let's start at the very beginning. On March 15th, 1767, unfortunately, Andrew Jackson was born. His parents, Scots-Irish colonists, lived in the Waxhaws region of the Carolinas, which extends a bit beyond the borders of modern-day North and South Carolina. His father died at just 29 in a logging accident, presumably when a tree fell on him and squished him Looney Tunes style with his arms and legs sticking out the sides. After his father's death, little Andy's mother moved in with relatives on a South Carolina plantation, giving Jackson an early taste for the good life, which of course meant a life waited on hand and foot by enslaved human beings. Jackson and his 2 older brothers, Hugh...
Woohoo, freedom! Sorry.
We're slaves.
They love slaves. Everybody
Back
loves
in the
slavery.
good old days, man.
I genuinely... side note, I don't know. I don't understand the slavery thing. I cannot... I've tried to put myself in the shoes of a person back then, a quote-unquote person of their time, and I cannot fathom purchasing a human being to use as, like, a beast of burden. It's wild to me. I don't understand. And whipping them, and Jesus Christ. Anyway, Jackson and his 2 older brothers, Hugh and Robert, all fought in the Revolutionary War. Hugh died of heat exhaustion after a battle, and Robert became malnourished and contracted smallpox while a prisoner of the British. He and Andrew were eventually released as part of a prisoner swap, but Hugh died just a few days after returning home. Their mother also died young after contracting cholera while volunteering as a nurse for American prisoners of war. So by the time Andrew was 14, he had fought in a war, and every member of his immediate family had died. From then on, he hated the British, his only redeeming trait, and supposedly came to despise all things he associated with the Brits, including, hilariously, given the rest of his life, aristocracy and political privilege. Fast forwarding a bit, Jackson eventually graduated law school. While traveling to accept his new position as a prosecuting attorney in what is today Tennessee, he made a brief pit stop to buy his first slave, a young woman about his age, which is a little sus, as you can imagine. A few years later, Jackson had climbed up the social ladder and made some powerful friends in the legal profession. He got into land speculation, as there was plenty to steal from the natives. And shortly thereafter, he got married to one Rachel Robards, and in 1796, they bought their first plantation on a humble 640 acres of land. By 1804, Jackson had almost gone bankrupt. A financial crash and land speculation don't generally go well together. He had to sell his plantation and 25,000 acres he had acquired over the past few years. Jackson and Rachel downsized to a much more humble 420-acre plantation, which they called the Hermitage, where he decided to become a planter. If you don't know what a planter is, think Leonardo DiCaprio's character in Django Unchained, a rich white dude who runs a farming operation off the back of slaves. The Hermitage would grow to encompass over 1,000 acres of land, which made it one of the largest cotton plantations in the state. To work this land, Jackson relied on significant slave labor, starting with 9 slaves in 1804 and owning over 150 by the time of his death. And that was just one point in time. Over the course of his life, Jackson owned over 300 human beings. He was also particularly cruel to any who attempted to escape. In one advertisement looking for a runaway, Jackson offered an additional $10 reward for every 100 lashes the captor was willing to give the slave, up to a maximum of $300. So do the math on that. If you're familiar with, how whipping works, that person would not survive.
But okay, but if the whipper would give him like bonus whips, but he wouldn't ask for more than 300, would he still whip him? Because like it's an economic question. Did he limit his whips because he was, had a speck of humanity in him, or because he didn't want to spend more than $300 per whipping? I think it's
probably the latter, if I had to guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Be economical with your whipping, but you small whippersnappers.
Let me look.
Teaching his children. Oh, Lord.
Let me look that up. Inflation calculator. Inflation calc. Let's see
That's
what
a lot of money, though.
$300. If in 1780.
Yeah.
And 300 schmeckles. 300 would cost. Calculate. Oh, darn. They don't go back that far. Anyway, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
All right, let's have a quick skim of the highlights of Jackson's military career. In 1814, Jackson made a name for himself by winning the Battle of New Orleans. He installed himself as a local tyrant, implementing martial law, a 9 p.m. curfew, censoring the newspaper, jailing a congressman, a judge, and a district attorney, refusing the right to trial, threatening to execute some people, actually executing some people on fraudulent charges, banning Mario Kart, Super Smash Brothers, that sort of thing. He also had 6 of his own men executed for attempting to leave town before their term of service expired, which was a really absurd thing to do because the war was over. This behavior was a pattern for Jackson. He was known to be cruel, manipulative, he had an explosive short temper, and he was not afraid to use whatever power he had to make sure people he thought deserved punishment were punished. Moving on to his political life, Jackson had his sights set on the presidency by 1824. It was a close race, but he lost out to John Quincy Adams. After the loss, Jackson's supporters created a new party with the explicit goal of making sure Adams only got 1 term, which they probably didn't need to do because people couldn't stand the guy anyway. Everyone thought he was an elitist snob, like all American presidents are, but Adams genuinely acted like it. Jackson won the 1828 election in a landslide, with 56% of the popular vote and 68% of the electoral vote. Now he had real power. So let's talk about what he did with it. Jackson's presidency is seen as the official start of the U.S. policy of genocide against the Native Americans. From his earliest days in office, Jackson supported southern states extending their legal jurisdiction into Native land, and he refused to use federal authority to protect Native rights. What he did use federal authority for was the forcible separation of Native Americans and whites. In 1830, Jackson passed what was called the Indian Removal Act, a plot to relocate Native Americans west of the Mississippi. So, in theory, this was supposed to be voluntary relocation, but it didn't actually work out that way. Jackson's goal was to get them out by any means necessary, which usually meant fraud, bribery, or violence. And when tribes outright refused to move, Jackson went to war with them, butchering as many as it took until the tribe complied. Those that did comply faced horrific marches to the west. 4,000 Choctaws died of cholera, hundreds more from hunger or exposure. A full quarter of Eastern Cherokees died in the process of being rounded up and shipped off. All told, Jackson forcibly removed at least 70,000 Native Americans from the United States. He killed untold thousands who resisted, and he stole some 170,000 square miles of land. But because one crime against humanity simply wasn't good enough, Jackson planned to use the land he stole for plantation farming, once again powered by slave labor. He also wasn't big on the whole free speech thing, because when abolitionists began distributing flyers calling for justice, he said these people were monsters who should atone with their lives. That's ye old American speak for, hey, you guys should kill yourselves. He worked with the Postmaster General to make sure these flyers and pamphlets were not distributed to the public, citing a concern that it could incite slaves to revolt. Imagine that. And that is pretty much Jackson in a nutshell. Slaver, ethnic cleanser, petty tyrant, and just an all-around asshole. He died of a combination of illnesses at age 78 on June 8th, 1845. And do you want to know what his last words were, boys? Go on.
Come on, lay it on me.
Oh, here we go.
Lay it on me.
Ready? Don't cry. Be good children, and we will all meet in heaven. How's that for self-awareness from a dude who owned over 300 people? Jesus Christ.
Dude thought he was fucking Santa Claus, bro.
Yeah.
Look, the hell patch only comes in a 301. All right, so the guy was clear. My God.
Oh my God.
Fucking animals, I swear to God.
He's an interesting one. So it's like, thankfully, most Americans these days recognize Jackson was like a horrific person. But I wouldn't say he's even close to the worst president we've had. Like, on a personal level, yes, he's an evil human being, warmonger, a genocidaire, all that stuff. But in terms of, like, actual global impact, it's crazy to think that there are so many more that committed so much more evil than this tremendous piece of shit did. It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
especially when you add a historical context to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not excusing having slaves and mass murdering Native Americans.
Not at all.
You know, it was a part of the era. But when you see somebody, especially from the 20th century, committing similar levels of crimes in an era where, you know, you have like UN resolutions on what you cannot do and shit, and then yet they still do it, it's arguably even worse because they actually do not have the excuse of, yo, this segment of the, you know, human update patch called morality wasn't there yet, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, in the 21st century, with all the supposed, you know, checks, balances, international ways to keep people accountable, you know, international criminal court, international law, all this stuff, and somehow we still have American presidents supporting, aiding, abetting, shoving propaganda for an ongoing genocide. Perhaps the most widely broadcast, readily information available about genocide in history. So it's not like, you know, these presidents have gotten any better in this enlightened era, the year of our Lord 2023.
Excuse you. These presidents haven't gone any better. Boy, do I have a president for you, and you're going to swallow those words whole. As many unfortunate people in his administration may have had to do. Tough it along. All right. So my president, by the way, of course, Biden's not my president, but the president that I'm deciding to cover is Bill Clinton, of all people, or by his official name, William Jefferson Clinton Blythe III. Yes, this guy is the third. So he's already a piece of shit.
Blythe is that's a way cooler last name than Clinton, I think. I think Blythe is cool. You sound like a pirate or something.
Yeah, there's some lore there, by the way.
Ooh, okay.
Before we get onto this, by the way, Bill Clinton is officially the first boomer president.
Really?
He was born in 1946. Yeah, he is officially the first boomer president. So the beginning of the decline for some, but it's been declining for a while. Okay, so Bill Clinton was the 42nd president of the United States. He ruled, I guess, or his tenure was, or whatever the fuck his administration was, from 1993 to 2001. Hold on, those aren't even years. What was going on? Well, he may have been impeached. Maybe, possibly, maybe. He didn't complete his term to 2001, but we'll get on to that. Lamau. He finished on the back end. Is that bad? All right. So his father, who was also William, by the way, which I guess makes him, that's why he's the third. His dad was the second, I guess. I don't know why people do this shit. But his dad died of drowning after a car crash at the age of 28. And his dad was married 5 times at the age of 28. He was married 5 times.
No way, man. How do you even do that?
Don't ask me.
Did they all die? Did the wives die? Is there
No. He married and divorced. That was just the kind of guy he was. So maybe
drowned
it was
with all 4 of his wives.
No, I think he was on his own in that car. But so maybe it's in the blood why Clinton was the way he was. But anyways, his stepdad was his stepdad's last name was Clinton, and he took his stepdad's surname. Hence why he is known as Bill Clinton. But Clinton at first considered music as a young man, and then afterwards considered medicine. But eventually settled on law because he realized that is the most dishonest of the above professions. So that's the one he'll go into. In his like foundational years, he claims that 2 things were the most inspiring for him. The first one was meeting Kennedy, the president Kennedy, as part of something called the Boys Nation, which sounds very unpleasant. This doesn't sound okay.
It also sounds like a South African boy band or something.
At first it sounds like a boy band, and then it just sounds very unpleasant. Do you know what Boys Nation is, JT?
No, is it like the Scouts or something?
Yeah, it's like some Scout adjacent thing, but it's like a federal shit, and each year 1,000 of them are chosen to meet the president or something. So he has all of like 2 seconds shaking all these kids' hands essentially, and that's it. But apparently this was a defining moment for him. And he was also impacted by Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. he was so overwhelmed by the speech that when he was president, he continued Reagan-era policies of underfunded inner-city communities and increased incarceration.
I mean, he was inspired to fight it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Like, I heard this motherfucker speak. Time to do this shit.
I have a dream too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh Lord, hold on. If you're not already kind of offset by how insufferable this dude would have probably been, he was a class president.
Of course he was.
High school, and he was. Of course he was. Yeah,
was he a hall monitor too?
Yeah. What other fucking dork shit was he? But anyways, he spent some time also in Oxford, in the University of Oxford, so in the UK, and then eventually came back to the US to study at Yale. Instead, so he only spent a small amount of time. But there's an interesting episode that happened during his time at Oxford, and I'll quote it to you. This is from a British writer known as Sarah Maitland. She said of Clinton, "I remember Bill and Frank Ayler, which was a friend of his at the time, taking me to a pub in some cringe street in the summer term of 1969 and talking to me about the Vietnam War. I knew nothing about it, and when Frank began to describe the napalming of civilians, I began to cry. Bill said that feeling bad wasn't good enough. That was the first time I encountered the idea that liberal sensitivities weren't enough and you had to do something about such things." Which is
yeah.
Yes, but
Bravo. Okay.
But then what?
Yeah, exactly. I love how you said this, but nothing, or I mean, the follow through that he did have follow through, but not on stopping napalming of kids.
Oh.
That's. But anyways, so as is typical with these liberal institutions, by the way, Clinton received an honorary degree and even a fellowship from the University of Oxford when he was president around 1994 for being, and I quote, a doughty? It's like dough, the word dough, D-O-U-G-H-T-Y, a doughty. I've never seen this word before. No. A doughty and tireless champion of the cause of world peace. That's what they claimed. Now, hold on, let me look up this word. I should have done this
Maybe
earlier.
like dough, so he was thick.
It's doughty. It's an archaic word that means brave and persistent, fearless, dauntless, determined. Okay, interesting.
He got the award and then he stopped being that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think this is like the same vein of Obama getting or Kissinger getting the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
He's after bombing Yugoslavia, he was a champion of world peace. After increasing sanctions on Iraq. But anyways, apparently, at least for a short bit when he was a kid, like in uni, he was a little bit based. He took part in some anti-Vietnam war protests as a student. He then went on to meet his wife, Hillary Clinton, or Hillary Rodham, as she was known, in law school in 1971. At the time, after
yeah, that's what he changed. There you go. You see, he was dope. He was pretty dope. Yeah. And then Hillary. Oh, a new theory is building in my head.
We need to do an episode
sexist,
on her.
Maybe, but yeah.
The queen that
we can't. She never became president.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. Moving on from that, though, he towards the end of his university period and the beginning of his career, he took part in the presidential campaign of a Democrat named McGovern, who was a notoriously unpopular figure running against Nixon. He was like number 5 in the Democrat polling. But for some reason, he was still chosen as the guy to represent the presidential bid for some fucking reason.
Because of his name, bro. Like,
yeah, exactly. McGovern. Oh boy, let's McGovern the nation again. I don't fucking. I'm pissing and coming. It's McGovern.
Do not come.
Continuing in the Democrat tradition of nutting where you're not supposed to. The turnout for this particular general election, was 55%. Which is, of course, a sign of a healthy and vibrant democracy. By the way, it's not much better now in the U.S. It always hovers between 50 and like 65%. It's very bad. So if you're being extremely, this is a little side tangent, if you're being extremely generous, that means roughly 30% of the eligible U.S. electorate actually voted for Nixon, meaning 70% of the population didn't want Nixon as president. Which, of course, by the way, completely healthy, vibrant democracy, blah, blah, blah. In 1976, Clinton ran for the Arkansas Attorney General, which was his first real public office. And in another example of beautiful and vibrant democratic proceedings, Clinton ran and was elected with no opposition in the election. He was the only guy on the ballot that you can vote for.
And it was a close race.
Arkansas, yeah, by the way, Arkansas Attorney General, this is not like a, your neighborhood watch or something.
Yeah.
Right? It's you'd think, anyways. We're told apparently it's only the filthy Soviets that had this, which by the way is also a misunderstanding of the Soviet system, but I'm not going to get into that now. But no, the US is a healthy democracy, and this is things working as they're supposed to. It wouldn't have mattered if he ran contested, is my point. Regardless, from this spot, he launched himself into being elected as governor of Arkansas in 1978, and then in 1982 he was elected governor a second time, and he was governor for 10 years basically, until he became president. So this solidified his position. So him going from basically no political office to president was based on an unopposed election for anyways, moving that aside, he became a leading figure of something that he termed himself, or that was termed like in a political science bullshit term, the New Democrats, which is a nonsense, culturally liberal on social issues, but I'm fiscally conservative on economic issues type. Blech. You know, this brain rot.
What every middle-class white person says they are, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's like, I want more black people in prison, but I smoke weed sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what that means. I don't want minorities in my neighborhood.
There we go. We're going to get pulled from YouTube again. They're going to hear that.
but I'll have a gummy every once in a while. Yeah. I'll buy it from the minority, but then I'll report them. Is what they're going to say. Anyways, so this New Democrats was basically a clique within the Democratic Party that argued that Reagan is too popular, and the way to counteract his popularity was to go further right, to push the Democratic Party right in order to counter to take away from his support base, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, to remind you, the 1984 election that brought Reagan into power had a turnout of 55% again, and the electoral proportion that voted for Reagan was 30%, not the 31% for Nixon, 30%. It was less than for Nixon in the previous example. These are not popular figures. This is a mockery of the bullshit of... But anyways, moving aside to kind of like his tenure, I guess, when he was in Arkansas, the only good thing that he did, I would say, that I've read through this entire thing, the only thing that he passed through that made sense was educational reform in the form of increased funding for schools, increased schooling for people with like special needs or gifted children, increased salaries for staff, etc., which is just generally a good policy. But anyways, he also at the same time while in Arkansas, he made some very sketchy real estate development investments through his governor office, like through his governorship, using some sketchy money that may not have been his question mark allegedly that was investigated by the FBI. But magically, nothing ever came of it. Nothing ever touched Clinton, but several of his buddies saw jail time as a result of it. But all of it was like, oh, no, Clinton's inconclusive. So, let's just bury this and not open up the case. And anybody who gets on the case is fired from investigating the case. It's just very convenient.
Sounds above board to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's move on.
Anyways, his first, I guess, foray on the national stage was he gave the nationally televised opening night address to the Democratic National Convention in 1988, which who fucking watches this garbage? All right. Anyways, his speech that he gave, this is his face to the nation. This is the first time that everybody across the country is seeing this dude's face. And he gives a 33-minute long speech, twice the length, by the way, it's supposed to be. For something like this. It's supposed to be 15 minutes. He gave 33 minutes, and it was widely criticized for, I quote, being too long and poorly delivered. He thought he was Castro. He thought he could get up there with the fucking, with the Caribbean charisma, but nah. He forgot he was a white guy from Arkansas. so
all he can do is get up there and talk about the Tyson chicken plant.
Exactly. You think, honestly, it's... I listened to a part of it because I hate myself. Yeah. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you it is as bad as claimed. Wow. He made sports references, to the very bad, I'm just like one of you guys type of, the local football team just lost, but we'll get him again next time, right? Right, guy? He did one of those.
I didn't study at Oxford, no.
Yeah. That's number one. For some reason, he went into a eulogy of Kennedy and was like, on this 25th anniversary of Kennedy's death, but it has nothing to do with Kennedy. This is, and then afterwards, he did what I can only describe as a very bad and almost racist imitation of Martin Luther King.
Ooh.
Exactly the I have a dream speech. You know how Martin Luther King would prolong some of the words and really bring it out from his chest, right?
Yeah, like a preacher, yeah.
Yeah, exactly like a preacher. Thank you. Exactly like a preacher is how he delivered it. And this dude is definitely not that, but he tried. He saw and he was like, oh, people like this.
Still looking for who Bill Clinton is.
Yeah, and it falls Fuck it. The only good thing, by the way, it's available on YouTube. By the way, comments are turned on.
I love it.
It's available on YouTube. It has like 50,000 views. And the only reason that I would even recommend you watch it is because the people in the crowd, sometimes they pan over to them and you see the haircuts and the clothes that they have. And it just gives me a Toy Story 1 vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was strangely comforting to see. But anyways, moving on. He ran for president in 1992. And his presidential campaign was immediately bogged down by his affair with a Jennifer Flowers. Jennifer spelled with a G rather than a J. Interesting.
That is interesting.
But Jennifer Flowers, who was a TV journalist, who looks exactly like Hillary Clinton. Like she looks exactly like if you're pause this, go look her up. Jennifer Flowers.
Right.
She is 1-to-1 to Hillary Clinton. And not to be crass or anything, but if you're gonna cheat on your wife, what's the like? Don't cheat on your wife. Don't do it. Okay.
She does look, wow, that is pretty close.
Yeah. But if you're what was the point? What like? Anyways,
He's got a type.
Maybe she was actually nice, so
maybe possibly.
He just wanted somebody to talk to who would tell him the truth.
she didn't like put him in a doggy cage every morning and fucking spank him.
God.
Are you bad? Have you been a bad boy, Clinton?
Don't, please. Oh, fucking hell. Dude, my dad still makes, like, Clinton jokes. He's and they're so crass. They're so unpleasant.
Oh.
But anyways, he denied, by the way, he denied his affair with this lady. Like, he had many affairs, and we'll get into those. He denied it with her, and, like, with all the other ladies, it eventually came out that he was, in fact, unfaithful, and he did this on, like, during his on work time. So he was getting paid by her tax money while he was getting his dick sucked in the governorship office, which is all right.
Honestly better than what most of our tax money is used for.
I mean, yeah, you do have a point. But another issue that immediately came up was a conflict of interest regarding his political position and his running for office and whatnot, and something called the Rose Law Firm, which was a law firm in Arkansas that his wife, Hillary Clinton, was a partner of. Basically, there was a conflict of interest because she stood to gain monetarily from his governorship, which, by the way, again was buried. No solution came out of it. It was completely buried, like all of the other stuff. But anyways, he somehow won the election, which, by the way, he won it with 1/5 of the national electorate, which is hilarious. Who takes the U.S. political system seriously? I don't fucking know. His first few moments in power were, we can call them rough. That's, I think, what we can say. And I'll quote you something. He said, his high level of public support in the beginning post his election dropped in the first few weeks, and he made a series of mistakes. That's what they call it, a series of mistakes. His first choice for attorney general had not paid her taxes on babysitters and was forced to withdraw. His second appointee to replace her also withdrew because of the same reason.
Oh my God.
What?
I'm just, like, this seems like such a... Taxes on babysitters?
Babysitters? What the fuck is that?
Yeah, this is what it says, but not like verbatim. It says, had not paid her taxes on babysitters.
That's so strange.
How much money do you have to rake up in babysitters that, like, they reach, like, a tax bracket that you have to meet?
But aren't the babysitters supposed to pay the taxes?
I don't know.
I guess, because, like, they're getting paid. Or maybe, what?
I don't know.
We found the opening of a rabbit hole that no one has explored. There's something to this. We'll get to it.
Okay,
we'll do a whole episode on babysitter taxes.
Exactly. This will be the next what's it called, Patreon exclusive.
Yeah.
Anyways, so one of his I guess you can call it a banger program according to liberals. I shit you not. It's called the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993, which was the first time in U.S. history where a law required large employers to allow employees to take unpaid leave for pregnancy or serious medical conditions.
Sixth world country, I swear to God.
So prior to this, if you had a quote unquote serious medical condition, you could not take unpaid leave. By the way, you're not being paid unpaid, right?
Jesus
if you're
Christ.
pregnant, you have to give birth on the floor.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, and it's you'd cry if you wouldn't laugh, right?
Yeah.
But following this thing that liberals loved, because they have, I guess, 1/3 of a soul or whatever the fuck that they can't manage to realize that this is something that's supposed to come built in with any civilized society. Clinton authorized military action during the Waco siege in Texas, killing 82 people, mostly civilians, and 28 children. Now, the Waco story was a big fucking wide thing. I'm not in the mood to get into it. But essentially, there were innocent people amongst in the event, right? The stuff that happened, there's some people who did some stuff, but there was a good chunk of people who were innocent people, specifically 28 kids. They set the entire building on fire and basically burned them alive. The U.S. military did this, by the way, and he authorized it. Anyways, so he did apparently try to pass universal healthcare in the U.S. by some form. Yeah, apparently. And it was a big thing that he, his platform was on and he campaigned on it. But this plan was, and I quote, doomed by well-organized lobby opposition from conservatives, the American Medical Association, and the health insurance industry.
That sounds about right.
Again, so a very vibrant democracy that you have, that a very popular program that people would democratically support and vote in favor of, if there were a referendum, gets stopped by private interests, particularly within capital. Very, very healthy society. If that wasn't enough, later on, Clinton was involved in something called Troopergate. Now, this was basically a controversy.
Is that one of the first gates? Because probably one of the first gates.
Like after Watergate, then everything started being called fucking bullshit.
I hate it so much.
Same.
It's even gotten, I don't know if it's gotten to like your area, Hakeem. Because here, for example, I remember in Serbia there was Apartment Gate, that was Aunt Gate. One minister had 10 apartments in Canada owned by his aunt, and they called it Aunt Gate.
Come on.
Fucking legendary. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love it. But yeah, no, thankfully...
Saddam Gate.
Yes, oh my God. Oh, fucking... But he had several, by the way, of these gate blank bullshit. Clinton. They really were, they ran off with this stuff. But Troopergate was a controversy. You won't fucking believe this shit. This is like if I was a bad writer, this is what I would write. This is a controversy involving the Arkansas State Troopers, which, but JT just explained for a foreign audience, which basically means me. What the fuck is a state trooper?
Typically, a state trooper is just like a highway cop. Like you're gonna
the ones with the hats,
the ones with
hats
the
and
ones
the
with the funny
mustache and
hats,
the glasses.
They look like they should be riding a horse instead of driving one of their cruisers or whatever.
I see.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it looks kind of cool. Like the little fascist in me is like kind of looks, it's still a cowboy, But unfortunately, they embrace it, I think, too much.
Yeah.
And they literally act like road cowboys.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Now, do you know what the state troopers in Arkansas claimed to have? Of course, all this is alleged. We don't want to get hit with a suit here, but all this is alleged. But they claimed that they, and I quote, had arranged sexual liaisons for Governor Bill Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
And also lied to his wife for him.
Why?
Yeah. So apparently they were tasked with finding women that he would apparently find attractive enough, getting the numbers, finding the setting up the hotel rooms for him to go meet his mistresses, and at the same time lying to his wife about where he's at. And making sure that she's not anywhere near where he's going to be when he's going to be cheating on her and all that.
Dude, this is next level organization for like cheating on your wife. How did this guy fucking get caught afterwards? How do we even read this? He had state troopers probably spying on Hillary to make sure she's nowhere even close to the hotel. Then separate actual uniformed persons going and finding sex workers and delivering it to his particular place. Like this is organized crime, fucking mob level shit. And yet we are still reading this out on a podcast. Fucking how big of a fail son are you, brother? Jesus Christ.
You know the best part about all this is for some reason every single picture, I guess this is a leftover from like boomer American culture and expectation for a political figure, but I'm not talking about his infidelity. He's a piece of shit. He shouldn't be cheating on his wife, even if she is a demon and a ghoul. I mean, he still shouldn't be cheating on her. But whenever they mention his affairs or this shit that he was doing, there's a very like low res mid 90s or early 90s picture, pixelated usually, of like a Christmas postcard almost of him and his wife by a fireplace, and there's a Christmas tree and he's standing and she's sitting and he has his hand on her shoulder. It looks like I don't know if you played Resident Evil 1, but it looks like a Spencer Mansion, portrait.
Yeah.
Like it looks like something from a Japanese video game. It doesn't look real. It looks like what they think American politicians are like. That's funny. Anyways,
I mean, like, sorry for interrupting you, but literally yesterday, but they didn't like format it intentionally. I think so. It looks kind of relaxed. The picture of Joe Biden fixing up his tree with his wife in the Oval Office, and they're like, the main tweet was, "Could you imagine Trump doing this?"
Oh my god! They photoshopped the strings away from fucking from Biden.
But it's just even ignoring that. Why was there a camera guy there, and then it got posted on official pages? Like, oh my god, so casual, Oh, we're just doing this without any photo shoots. But then there was a photo shoot. Stuck with kurz. What the fuck? Like what?
People are stupid. Yeah. They believe that the average American looking at them is tremendously stupid, and most of the time they're correct.
Lamar.
Average human, brother.
Yeah.
I want to build up on this point a little bit, the state trooper sexual liaison bit.
Please do. It's fucking fascinating. Holy fucking shit, man. Oh, Lord.
It's
it's starting again, but if you're putting in that much effort just to fucking cheat, then just put in some effort to get divorced. Like, what the...
Yeah,
why?
Right? Like,
what? It's so irrational. It's
it would have damaged his political career probably in some way, right? Who knows? Anyways, it's unclear how truthful these state troopers were. But a few of the women they named, they only gave the first names of these ladies. Several of them did eventually come out. And their
he
storyline...
turned them gay? He was
my
bad?
Gosh! But yeah. they're like the alibi or the stories that they gave basically lined up very well with what the state troopers were saying. One of these ladies was a woman called Paula Jones, who was a state employee. She sued Clinton for sexual harassment in 1994 in relation to this, and this was very conveniently settled out of court for $850,000.
Wow.
Something an innocent man does, by the way.
No kidding.
So yeah. And something else also that's funny that I just found out during this process, almost all, if not all, of his former mistresses that are in the public eye still endorsed Trump in 2016 when Hillary ran.
Oh, wow.
I guess, which is I just find it very funny.
Yeah.
Aside from him trying to, cheat on his wife, he got to work immediately after his presidency, meddling in the new so-called democracy in Russia after the illegal dissolution of the Soviet Union, where he supported Yeltsin at every step. He basically helped introduce American funding and campaign help for Yeltsin's election meddling. They helped the Yeltsin basically rig several rounds of elections in Russia. They gave them diplomatic cover during the constitutional crisis, all this basically. So he immediately got to work doing what America does best, which is interfering in other countries' political and legal systems. Moving on from this, on January 1st, 1994, Clinton signed something called the North American Free Trade Agreement, which is shortened to NAFTA. I'm sure people have heard of this. Which, by the way, as a kid, I always... Because in Arabic, nafot is oil.
Same. Instead of Croatian, NAFTA is just oil.
Right.
Yo, how much does the NAFTA cost today? Oh my God, it's so expensive. Yeah, it's like
exactly right.
Word.
So when I was a kid, I would hear the term NAFTA, and I was like, does this have something to do with oil? I know for some reason, even now, I understand what NAFTA is, but that connection in my mind to it doesn't. It's very, very strange. Anyways.
Same.
But yeah, basically, NAFTA created a free trade zone between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. Interestingly, it's played if you're into the world systems theory stuff, it's played a role in the systematic underdevelopment of Mexico for American gain. So basically, Mexican economic development and like labor force and cheaper inputs, etc., are used to subsidize the American economy essentially. And there's a good article or paper written on this titled "Migration and Imperialism: The Mexican Workforce in the Context of NAFTA," which I recommend you read. It goes into some interesting detail. But moving on from this point, he introduced something called the Among Us crime bill. It's called the Omnibus, but so the Among Us crime bill, he signed it into law in September 1994, so just a couple of months later. And this saw arguably the largest increase in incarceration of mostly black people in the vein of combating crime in the United States. It also introduced the death penalty for non-violent offenders of grave crimes, and this included drug offenses usually, which surprise targeted mostly minorities. And again, this shit always happens. Are you surprised? He also passed an anti-illegal immigrant bill with the usual nonsense. And in between all of this, he apparently stopped over in the Philippines and was almost assassinated by bin Laden. And there is one sentence I found about this where there are sources, but I can't find any details. Apparently, they always state that he narrowly escaped assassination by bin Laden, but there's no follow through.
No
so they just blue ball you. Yeah, there's anyways. So yeah, I guess Clinton swung by Langley and bin Laden almost crashed into him with what the fuck? What is it called in English?
What?
You have a little cart where you have the...
A golf cart?
Yeah, no, not the golf cart. The little cart where you want to move like files from one office to another. So you just have lots of like binded files and folders.
Oh, what do you call this?
Yeah, that thing basically. He almost crashed into him when he was in Virginia, yeah.
It's probably called an office cart or a library cart, something like that. I don't know.
Most likely.
We know what you're talking about.
Moving on, we're going to enter into the bigger, I guess, chunk of Clinton's foreign policy deal, which is where most of his crimes, most of his major crimes are, aside from him cheating on his wife. Which, by the way, I want people to not forget. This dude has never skipped a moment on cheating on his wife. From like the 70s up until probably last week, this dude's been cheating. This fucking and anyways,
it almost makes you like Hillary, not but feel sorry for her. But then you remember Hillary, and you're like, holy shit,
terrible.
And hey,
nobody deserves to be cheated on. But then, like Hillary, like okay, if there's a list of people that deserve to be cheated on.
Imagine sitting at their coffee table. Fuck me, what an unpleasant.
It's from the perspective of a little bit of karma. It doesn't matter like cheating on, like losing a finger, but at least some karma. Because Hillary's not gonna see any fucking karma in this lifetime. But
they're gonna join Bush Senior and Kissinger. It's okay.
Yeah,
inshallah. Anyways, so during his tenure, something known as the Black Cock Down episode.
Fucking throwback, baby! Yeah.
So Black Hawk Down is I think a movie was made about it. People know about it. Basically, 2 American helicopters were shot down.
We had an episode
RPGs,
about it.
They were shot down by RPGs over Mogadishu in Somalia, and this resulted in some urban back and forth and a battle, I guess you can call it. Resulted in the deaths of 18 American soldiers and wounded 73 others, and resulted in something like over 1,000 civilian casualties or something in Somalia because of American subsequent ridiculous.
Because the Somalis, as we talked in that episode, just run and shout and shoot at the sky and
exactly
walls. Yeah.
Fuck me.
Throwback.
No, genuinely. But this was part of the U.S. intervention in Somalia during the Civil War at the time, and they failed, and this was a major what's it called? A black mark on his presidency at the time in the U.S. Oh, you lost American military personnel, blah, blah. It reminds me of that video of American soldiers in Mali, was it? When an American convoy was ambushed and they all had, what's it called? They all had GoPros, and but basically they were all executed. Like Call of Duty cutscene style, and it was released on Twitter. I think afterwards. I'll keep my comments to myself on that event. Following this, Clinton authorized in the mid-90s NATO bombing of Serbian targets during the Bosnian War. He would bomb Yugoslavia several times. Apparently, it was a favorite pastime of his. He bombed Yugoslavia again in the late 90s, including, by the way, accidentally striking the Chinese embassy in Belgrade.
Oops.
In
and
May
TV
of 1999.
stations, trains, people's houses. Literally all of the industry, most of it also industry that actually feeds people. Just classic stuff like that. Accidentally hitting like the main cigarette factories, and then, oh my God, Philip Morris comes in and buys all of it. Just classic stuff like that.
Exactly.
Any industry that, some of the capital areas of the previously socialist Yugoslavia had managed to develop, no matter what you think about the particular war. Literally annihilating civilian infrastructure, but okay. And I mean, not even start about how many children got killed, but that's a different topic.
Exactly right. American pastime, I don't know what to tell you. He then went on to lay out, and this really needs to be its own episode, because you can go on the deepest rabbit hole on this shit. But basically, Clinton continued a Bush-led plan titled the Dual Containment Strategy following this. Now, the dual containment strategy was a overarching American approach towards, quote-unquote, containing both Iraq and Iran, specifically Ba'athist Iraq and the, quote-unquote, revolutionary, quote-unquote, Iran. In 1994, specifically, Clinton this was the first time he declared Iran as a state sponsor of terrorism and a rogue state, blah, blah, all this bullshit. And he gave executive orders, by the way, so he doesn't have to go through the entire process. He gave executive orders to heavily sanction Iran's oil industry. He banned almost all trade between U.S. companies and the Iranian government, basically a Cuba-style embargo was placed on Iran. Iraq was dealt a far worse hand, by the way, across the board, and we'll get into that in a second. But at the same time, as he was trying to punish the Iranian government, in February 1996, the Clinton administration specifically agreed to pay Iran something like $130 million in a settlement to discontinue an Iranian claim to the International Court of Justice against the U.S. The reason is because in 1989, a U.S. Navy ship shot down a civilian charter, like a plane, Air Flight 655, killing over 270 civilians or something. This was just a regular civilian flight going between Tehran to Abu Dhabi, I think, or Dubai, something like that, to the Emirates, essentially. And the Navy missile basically detected it and they shot it down, killing all these innocent people, basically just civilians. Why the fucking U.S. has aircraft carriers in and around the Gulf of Hormuz? After this, the Iranian government went to the Court of Justice, International Court of Justice, obviously, because this was very illegal and fucked up. Yeah. But they basically settled, quote unquote, out of court by paying $130 million roughly. If you were to read, by the way, into the dual containment strategy, this is just to get people's interest sparked in this. A whole framework was developed for this shit, and one of the things that was a consequence of the dual containment strategy was the development of a parallel program called a clean break, which let me just read you the subtitle of this: a new strategy for securing the realm. Now, if this sounds like a D&D fucking thing, then sure, but what it is basically a Broadway delivery or script for how you can maximize the instability within the West Asian, North African region, and specifically to the benefit of the illegal settler colonial entity in the region. And if you read it, it's almost like point for point what's happening now. And like you can go down such a huge rabbit hole. We're not going to do this today, but very, very evil. Regardless, following his bullshit with Iran, and after he paid, I believe in 1996, after he paid this several $100 million, he went on to give his State of the Union address. I believe this is in 1998 he did this. And he warned American Congress that Saddam Hussein in Iraq was building an arsenal of chemical and biological and nuclear weapons, and we need to stop, and we need to blah, 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 blah. Funnily enough, this was basically around his affair scandal and the shit with Monica Lewinsky was going on. So what he was trying to do was, he was trying to basically distract the media from his controversies by increasing sanctions and bombing civilian infrastructure in Iraq. So a very upstanding citizen this dude was. Following a kind of like rocky re-election campaign, I would say, where he managed to get re-elected, but he was, of course, less popular than he was originally. In 1996, he was accused of being and you can't make this up, only fucking Americans can be like this, I'm sorry to say, JT. He was accused of being a Chinese asset, Red China, Chinese asset, because some Taiwanese nationals contributed to his campaign and defense funds during his impeachment. But everybody blamed the People's Republic of China for it. And to this day, it's still but it was Taiwanese people. It was not. I love it. It was not me like that. Anyways,
we're number one, baby. That's why we're number one.
Exactly right. He was reelected in 1996, and like a small scandal followed, where basically people found out that he was renting out the Lincoln bedroom in the White House as an Airbnb for donors. So if you were to give a certain amount of money, you can go and sleep in the Lincoln bedroom, and you can go on a morning run with fucking Clinton, and you can have breakfast with him, and it's just stupid, like like Patreon perks. Yeah. Essentially, it's fucking.
We had true representation in office back then. Patron bros running for office.
Exactly right. So after a House inquiry, Clinton was eventually impeached on December 19th, 1998. The House of Representatives were the ones to carry this out. And this impeachment was based basically on him illegally lying about, and of course covering up, his relationship with Monica Lewinsky, who was a White House employee at the time, who was 22 years old. And he had his affair with her when he was 52. Everybody knows about the cigar and everything else. I'm not going to fucking go really too far into it. He realized that his days are numbered, so he's going to get impeached. So on his last day in office, officially, on January 20th, 2001, he decided that he needs to go out with a bang. So he pardoned a guy named Mark Rich, who was the founder of a mining and like commodity trading conglomerate called Glencore. Now, this guy was indicted in the United States on, and JT, I want you to count these, federal charges of tax evasion, wire fraud, racketeering, oil deals with Iran, and like illegal oil deals, quote unquote, particularly during the Iran hostage crisis, which in a weird way constitutes also treason at the time. So this guy was like at least 5 major, like, federal level crimes. And on Clinton's last day in office, he decides to pardon this dude, who, by the way, was a buddy of his. He also went on the same day, to pardon several other buddies of his who took the fall for his real estate shenanigans earlier when he was an Arkansas governor. A bunch of other inner circle people also caught sentences and were given pardons on the same day. Funnily enough, of course, that's what you do on your last day in office.
Yeah. Nothing's going to happen to you. Like, as soon as you're out of office, literally the second you're out of office, people only care about the next person. Ugh.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's what he did. Anyways, after leaving office, he claimed... Funnily enough, he claimed to have opposed the Iraq War from the start. Yes, the place that he sanctioned to shit and bombed and everything else. Then he went on to be like, exactly like Obama did afterwards. Like, no, we need to practice moderation on the international stage. This nonsense, he went on that fucking speaking tour. He claimed that, he was neutral and opposed to it from the start. In 2009, Clinton went to North Korea, of all places. He went to the DPRK because 2 dumb fuck American journalists went. I'm going to name and shame these people. Yuna Lee and Laura Ling. These 2 people basically tried to sneak in illegally through the Chinese border into the DPRK to try to get some, secret hermit kingdom fucking... I don't know. The DPRK allows documentary groups to enter into it. Like, you just need to contact them.
Yeah.
You can go and be a tourist. It's not... So instead of that, they decide to illegally break the law of a already, sensitive country because of the geopolitical and security situation in the area. They are working for a foreign government specifically. They try to get footage of things they're not supposed to illegally. By the way, JT, don't do this, but I'm just going to say, go and try to go and film closed off military installations in the US. See where the fuck you're going to end up.
Oh, it doesn't even need to be a military operation. When we were shooting our documentary on the Marshall Islands, and we came back to where all the Marshallese are immigrating to, which is a little town in Arkansas, funnily enough, where we went to the Tyson chicken factory plant thing, and it was a big complex with a big fence around it, and so we just drove by, and I was pointing the camera out the window, and one of their rent-a-cops zooms out of there and follows us and pulls us over and demands to see the camera and stuff. So it doesn't need to be a military installation here.
Yeah. Exactly right. So these 2 idiots end up getting caught, obviously, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing, in the DPRK, and then it becomes like a little diplomatic thing, and Clinton goes over there in 2009. I don't know why they sent Clinton over, but they did. And basically he met with Kim Jong-il, and they discussed a bit, and then Kim issued a pardon to them, and then they were sent back to the US. There's a bunch of other things I'll get into, but the final bit I'm saving because I want the dessert for last. But I just want you to know how much money this dude's made off of his many war crimes and cheating on his wife again. It does pay, apparently. In 2016, Forbes reported that Bill and Hillary Clinton together have made about $240 million in the past 15 years, from 2001 to 2015, roughly, so 14 and a half years. They made this mostly from paid speeches, quote unquote, business consulting, quote unquote. I don't know what the fuck that means. They're the lawyer, and book writing. The Clintons, this is based on, I believe, their tax returns. The Clintons made $109 million from 2000 to 2007. $109 million from 2000 to 2007, just from, and I quote, speaking fees and publications. Who the fuck buys a book written by Bill Clinton or fucking Hillary Clinton for that matter? Who the liberal theory? What the fuck? Yeah.
I mean, guys that want to cheat on their wife and want to do it very poorly and do not have the money or the resources to organize the way he did.
They need to
imagine buying and he's like, "What, state troopers? Hire state troopers? What the fuck is this guy talking about?" I'm like, I can't do this shit.
Yeah, exactly right. My God, he's like, bomb a sanctioned third world country to run interference for your for your infidelity. Anyways, he apparently charges between $200,000 and $1 million per speech, which is a very
nice little sum for an hour's work. Right. Jesus.
Yeah. Now I want you to enjoy the final segment, which is titled, by the way, on his Wikipedia page, specifically, the most not. Everywhere else, they try to kind of not cover this up, but reword it in a very nice way. But the most transparent quote I've seen is on Wikipedia, and it's titled "Relationship with Jeffrey Epstein."
Oh.
So basically, from the early 2000s onwards, Clinton took several flights on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet to the island in question. In 2002, one of Clinton's spokespeople basically rained praise on Epstein, calling him a committed philanthropist with insight and generosity. Epstein is believed to have visited Clinton while he was president in the White House at least 17 times.
Wow.
The best part about it is when, the shit happened and the sex trafficking charges came out and whatnot, like immediately Clinton's PR team fucking rushed to put out President Clinton knew nothing about the terrible crimes that he did. We were never associated. And then they start breaking. They're like, oh no, he only took 4 trips on his airplane. One was to Europe, 1 to Asia. Yeah, and 2 in Africa, in accordance with some bullshit foundation that Clinton has called the Clinton Foundation. And apparently, they're trying to be like, we were on top of everything. He didn't speak to Epstein afterwards. He hasn't spoken to him in like 15 years. Unsurprisingly, they lied about all of this. Clinton didn't go only 4 times. He's been on trips with Epstein on that particular plane 26 times.
Wow.
He's met Epstein in all of his like major offices, essentially. He attended dinners with him. Of course, all of this was like covered up eventually. And Clinton also had been to the island, allegedly. Again, allegedly, reportedly, whatever other fucking term we need to use. Several times between 2002 and 2005. And by the way, of course, several people who were involved in that, if you want to call it a scandal or crime, I don't know what you want to call it, particularly naming Clinton in this sort of stuff. So, I'm not so sure you want to trust the word of a guy who has systematically and repeatedly, shown himself to be a sex pest, essentially.
No, dude, don't even go that deep into the analysis. If you have a friend that you hung out, let's say 10 times with, this dude hang out 26 times with this person. After the 10th time, especially between men, everything that's wrong with this motherfucker, okay? Eventually, everything is shared. So him not knowing exactly what the fuck Epstein was doing after having interacted with him for so long and even spent multiple days together with this particular person and pretty much having access to all the fucking intelligence data on planet Earth as an ex-president should speak a few fucking volumes. I mean, Bill sounds naive, but nobody is that fucking naive. Baba Marta from fucking, Niš, Serbia, if she interacted with Epstein like 3 times, she would fucking know what the fuck is going on. Exactly. So it's fucking stupid to make arguments that he didn't know exactly what's up, if not even participated in those particular things, which disgust me so much I won't even mention them.
I'll leave you off with the final thing, which is number 1. You know the famous image where Obama's putting a medal on Obama?
Oh, yeah.
It's Clinton who's actually in the original image. And that's just of course it's a fucking edit, it's a clever Photoshop. No, Obama duplicated himself for the fucking thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But much more importantly, and this is a gift from me to our lovely baby boy Yugopnik, in Kosovo, in Pristina, in the capital, there is a Bill Clinton Boulevard with a monumental Clinton statue, which... and
then a picture of Clinton behind him also on a building. Yeah. It's a perfect place for him to retire to. Absolutely ideal. I mean, it's getting depopulated so quickly that no matter what you think about the war, Americans always come in and encourage you to fight against your enemy, who is very often your neighbor, sometimes because the neighbor did something wrong, but sometimes because, you're just inspired to. And then after the war ends, what do? They just fucking leave you to your own fucking devices, which is exactly what happened to Kosovo, which is literally a fucking demographically dying state in every sense of the word. Let me not even talk economically. But no, he has this fucking statue there. So he can go and feel comfortable one day.
But I will also want you to... You're missing the most important thing in this, which is the place where he has a statue. They call it a boulevard, but what it looks like, it looks like the middle of like a panel, like a commie block community. Yeah. And his statue has been shat on by so many birds that the entire it's all white now, basically, from his shoulders and his head and everything. I don't think it's ever been fucking cleaned. And the American flag that's waving right beside it is also brown now. Nice. What a lovely legacy for
quite metaphoric. Yeah, absolutely. Quite the thing. And I wonder if like a Republican president visits, are they going to hide it or something?
Yeah.
It would be interesting. Or make sure they go through all the streets except that particular street. Could be an interesting thing to see.
when you go on Bill Clinton Boulevard on Wikipedia, they have a bunch of images of it, and the final image is basically the Boulevard Street, and instead of naming the street, it just says Olympus Digital Camera in all caps. And of course, it's a white BMW. It's the car in the foreground is a white BMW.
Yeah, that's rare. My Albanian brothers all drive Mercedes. That is a betrayal. It's probably an American car too, I suppose. Immediately noticed them. But speaking of, I guess, failed sons, it's kind of my time for my section. We'll be talking about a particular person called James Buchanan Jr. He's really competing for the position of the biggest failed son of all American presidencies and one of the most openly bipartisan hated politician in the country's history. Not particularly for the things he has done, but mostly for things that he has not done. But as we'll see as we go through the story, also things that he has full-heartedly endorsed. We have kept him for last, but that doesn't mean least. No, actually, it absolutely means least. This guy is so fucking underwhelming. I almost changed my mind about who I want to cover midway through his fucking career, but I was too deep in it at that point to go back. So let's actually get it started. I'll probably continuously mispronounce his name because to my Slavic brain it's difficult to properly pronounce it, so I'll intentionally take that as a thing and continuously mispronounce it. Don't think that you should fix my pronunciation or whatever the fuck.
Sure.
So let's start with James Buchanan. Fuck me. Even from the start.
Would you like to hear
James
it
Buchanan?
Once?
Buchanan, right?
Buchanan.
Buchanan.
Yeah.
James Buchanan Jr. was born in Pennsylvania. Oh, wait, now it's jumping to the other shit. I'm kidding. In Pennsylvania. Both of his parents were of Ulster Scot descent, with his father having emigrated from Ireland in 1783, which continues the true anti-Irish argument that I've always proposed, which is that it's actually the Irish who rule the world, especially their emigrants. After moving to a farm near Merkesburg and later into the town, Buchanan's father became the wealthiest residents, working as a merchant farmer and real estate investor. Buchanan attended the Old Stone Academy in the town and Dickinson College over in Pennsylvania, where he almost got kicked out for bad behavior. So he was a very bad boy in his early days, very rebellious. Afterwards, he moved to the state capital and worked under some of the most influential lawyers of the time. Remaining in Lancaster throughout his life, Buchanan quickly rose in income through his legal practice, earning quite a bit of money in the process. Buchanan's political career began with the Federalist Party, which I didn't even fucking know existed, and he served in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, which he mostly used to gain more clients instead of actually governing, a proper socialite. In addition to his legal and political pursuits, Buchanan was a Freemason, serving as the master of the Masonic Lodge number 43 in Lancaster. So all you conspiracy theorist guys out there, you've probably fucking erected this fucking fact. He served as the district deputy Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania later on. He moved into serving as a private in the War of 1812 against the English, marking him as the only actually U.S. president who ever served a non-officer role in a war. One would think that would teach him some humility and understanding of suffering and destruction, but as we will see, no. In 1820, our boy got elected into the House of Representatives, where through his career development, he settled in the growing niche of self-defined, quote, states' rights defenders. Quote for non-Americans is, basically slavers' rights defenders, just FYI. Similarly, how The game is played nowadays in Washington, like the picturing of the only Palestinian American representative as an extremist radical. James and his clique of that time used the same titles to address their colleagues from the North who put forward ideas of abolishment. During President Jackson's second term, our boy got a pretty sizable promotion and was an ambassador to Russia for a whole 18 months.
Wow.
Upon returning, he was put in the U.S. Senate, where he fully embraced his role as a professional centrist, what we would call it today, obviously back then not. So this, prepare yourself, is a story of the political career of a centrist who pretty much led to one of the bloodiest battles ever fought on the North American continent. While being fervently against abolitionists on the argument of individual states' rights, he still fought against a gag rule sponsored at the time, which would pretty much make any anti-slavery petition illegal. Mind you, he likely didn't do this out of his principal stance of free speech, but because he strategically believed it would just bolster the enemy's cause. He served as Secretary of State under President Polk, not to be confused with Polak, which is a nation, contributing to the significant expansion of U.S. territory. After the Mexican-American War, he quietly sought the Democratic presidential nomination, but was not really even selected inside of the party. Buchanan then became the U.S. minister, nowadays called ambassador, to the United Kingdom, where he focused on a joint control of a Central American canal and explored, I kid you not, the annexation of Cuba. This will turn into quite like a big thing for him.
Yeah.
I couldn't really find why Cuba, but he was just like, man, it's close, His involvement in the controversial Ostend Manifesto, proposing fighting the Spanish even for Cuba in case they didn't want to sell it, undermined both the ideology of what we all, dear listeners, should know, manifest destiny at that time, as well as the current presidential, at that time again, administration. Basically, it was a tad bit too radical to swallow by people who were dealing with internal contradictions at that time, especially on the topic of slavery, to want to go and fight the Spanish for Cuba. Like, what the fuck? So, very interesting ideas for this gentleman. He continued to serve abroad as the U.S. minister to the UK, which conveniently kept him away from the heated debate surrounding the now ultra-intensifying slavery dispute back on the continent. While not overtly seeking the presidency, he reluctantly, I love how they're always reluctant.
Yeah.
This is a quote from his fucking biography. He reluctantly accepted the movement on his behalf. The 1856 Democratic National Convention reflected Buchanan's views in its platform, advocating for an end to anti-slavery agitation. That was basically his platform. Fuck the libs who are continuously talking that this slavery shit is not that cool. Yeah. He eventually secured the nomination on the 17th ballot with support from many influential senators. Although he didn't actively campaign, Buchanan somehow won 45% of the popular vote and decisively secured the electoral vote, carrying every slave state except Maryland and 5 free states, including Pennsylvania. In his victory speech, Buchanan denounced Republicans as a dangerous and geographical party, pledging to restore harmony and destroy sectionalism. Upon his election, this dude immediately started taking massive, disgusting L's. He jumped on a pending Supreme Court case called Dred Scott versus Sanford, which he thought he could use as a kind of precedence to exclusively and quickly settle the whole debate, which has been lasting for quite a while, on slavery itself. In the so-called Dred Scott case, a slave temporarily taken to a free territory sought freedom upon return to the slave state. Following Buchanan's speech, the Supreme Court ruled against Dred Scott, favoring his owner and doing everything but ending this debate. Quite to the contrary, that shit at this point caught on fire. There are sources claiming that the president knew how the case was going to finish as it was going, so he was totally up for giving promises of, stability to the masses and elites, especially during his initial position in government. Funny enough, as I said previously, most historians agree that this was kind of the butterfly that tipped over the train hanging over the cliff in Uncharted 2, a PlayStation 3 classic, that eventually led to the Civil War. My favorite part about history kind of is seeing its patterns so clearly repeat even today. Buchanan right here is literally the 19th century version of today's politicians that call for less division and more bipartisan understanding, while quite literally only standing for the worst fucking demonic ideas of the so-called two-side divide. Later on, he oversaw a massive financial catastrophe, which he handled semi-shit using the classic reform over relief tactic, also known today, if I may say so myself, as austerity. Despite his quasi-efforts, he still ended up increasing the deficit of the country to 17 million by the end of his rule, which adjusted to inflation is a lot of money. Later on, he proceeded over the Utah War, which was, I don't know, so American that I don't think I even understood it. Like, some militia dudes were like, hell nah, we ain't taking immigrants from Arkansas. So the president sent the army to Utah. So those Utah dudes did some literal terrorism. So the president settled through like private arbitrage and then gave them amnesty. And they let another senator come rule Utah. Like, what the fuck? Okay. Yank thing. I'm not judging. Moving on in foreign policy, he continued, really wanting to buy or annex Cuba. He set up protectorates in Mexico, and even he wanted to buy Alaska from the Russians, which turns out he was just too early for. Keeping his promise not to seek re-election, he witnessed the 1860 Democratic National Convention, where Stephen A. Douglas won that particular nomination, which, as many of you probably know, following that, the Democratic Party actually quite literally split, with Southern Democrats nominating a different dude because, well, you can't have a Northern representative of the party right before a potential civil war starts. Fighting divided and confused Democrats totally, so a Republican, Abraham Lincoln, ended up winning. Before Lincoln's inauguration, Buchanan ignored warnings about potential secession from people who actually told them that this is going to happen, particularly by General Winfield Scott. The southern states' secession threatened the Union, and Buchanan, in his final speech to Congress, denied the right of states to secede, but insisted the federal government lacked the power to prevent it. He blamed the North's interference with southern slavery for the crisis. So a bunch of motherfuckers are seceding, and they're saying we don't give a fuck about if certain changes to the Constitution are going to be put forward. And who do we blame that on? The actual guys who are questioning the current status quo. Brilliant centrist behavior. Buchanan proposed constitutional amendments protecting slavery and met with South Carolinian commissioners but failed to prevent further secession. So these guys were constantly talking about secession, and he constantly kept giving them shit. And afterwards he would go and he would like, yo, please don't secede. And they would take the shit he would give them, but still say, fuck off, fail son, we are going to secede. Despite efforts, 6 more slave states seceded by January 1861. Buchanan replaced the Southern cabinet, now too late, with members who are hardcore Unionists. And when considering surrendering Fort Sumter, his new cabinet members threatened resignation, leading Buchanan to pretty much relent even on this tiny decision. Buchanan's presidency concluded with the nation on the brink of civil war, a crisis that would be inherited by his successor, Abraham Lincoln. Intellectuals tend to pose a question of why, an experienced and intelligent president such as this failed so miserably, which led arguably to the biggest war on U.S. territory. But that's exactly why they're fucking missing the point. By representing the professional politician who believed that we can all get along and that the status quo can continue indefinitely, he showed not only incredible political naivety, but a deranged, vanilla-coated view of how states, governments, and ideologies develop. History is a moving bulldozer getting heavier and heavier as we fill it with the stones of contradiction and hypocrisy, rolling down the hill with many drivers fighting over who gets to hold it. This struggle is eternal and never-ending. Pretending that there's no bulldozer or no way to steer it is arguably the worst, most violent thing you can do. But I guess, seeing as our boy was a supporter of slavery, his failure to act in total support for the separatists might kind of been the best thing he ever did. I genuinely think Buchanan, whatever the fuck his name should be forgotten, similar to my girl Melania, Trump's wife nowadays, really just didn't want to be there. And also he was never married, only U.S. bachelor president. A hard contrast to our previous boy.
Yeah. Well, there you have it, everybody. 3 equally interesting presidents, I would say. Clearly, I think there's one very interesting and then two footnotes. But beautifully said, boys, as usual. I think this was an excellent 3rd edition of our...
Second!
All Presidents Are War Criminals series. If you like this, do tune in next time. We love making these. We like making all these episodes for you people. Big thanks especially to our Patreon supporters. We could not do this without you guys. We really, truly appreciate all the kind words you drop in the Discord, on the Patreon, and of course the financial support. It really does help keep us independent, and we love you for it. Mwah. Big kisses all around. Mwah. With all that being said, this has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Hakeem.
And I'm Yugopnik.
Don't cheat on your wife.
Yeah, literally what I was going to say.
And then bomb Iraq, please.